So just before we get started, this is going to be a quite short webinar, just a little bit about our project design tool, about different things that you should consider when you are designing a project, things that many people don't realize is quite important. So I'm going to try to give you some tips and tools on how to get better at designing the projects. So most of you guys already know me. I am Fahan from Dahua Project. I'm the technical trainer. And this webinar is going to be about the project design tool that we have, which is still getting updated frequently and still have some different things that needs to be added yet. But I think we have somewhat a pretty decent tool in order to be able to put those cameras into a drawing and give you a good overview of our project. Can everybody see my PowerPoint presentation before we get started? Nikos, some of the characters are in Greek, I assume, or some other language I can't read. Great. All right, I think we can get started then. So at the end of the webinar, if you guys have time and you'd like to add some questions, please feel free to add questions afterwards. All right, let's get started then. So the project design tool, let's go through to what is the Dahua project design tool. Dahua project design tool is a cloud-based CCTV designing tool, which gives you a very easy access in terms of being able to access online wherever you are, so that it's not something that is locked and saved on your PC. So it should be significantly easier to access when everything is cloud-based. It is a software that should help you with better planning, and better planning means less projections, so that we end up in less of these situations. So one thing is to go install something, but if we don't have a proper planning, this is usually what we end up with in some situations. Apart from that, it is a tool that should help you be able to, just give me a sec. It is a tool that should be able to give you a understanding of sorry, let me just open this one up. This one just disappeared. Yeah. The project design tool, is a updated version. There is a client version, and then there is a online version, and the online version is the newest, and which is the one where we are putting a lot of effort into the development part. I'm gonna show you guys how to get access to the tool so you can try it out for yourself and register, etc., etc. So back to what I was saying, was that it is a tool that also allows you to use uploaded maps, and also a tool that gives you access to be able to use Google Maps, so that you can use any location from Google Maps. It focuses mainly on CCTV products. So if there are some specific cameras that you are very used to using, favorite cameras you have, you should be able to find them in there. So it should give the end customer a significantly better overview, so that they have an idea about how is their solution going to be looking. Because for an end customer to commit and put a pay for a large solution without being able to see how it's going to more or less look is quite challenging. So in this way, we give the customer an easy option to kind of have an idea about what to expect. We can upload different maps. We can upload different floors, areas, etc., to go even more details, because sometimes when you are using Google Maps, you might sometimes want to add more different local maps directly, so that you have the inside of the building. Apart from that, it should also help you in order to be able to deal with tender material significantly better than before. So in this way, if you have some specific requirements from a tender, some of those things we are going to address as well. So apart from that, whenever we want to design something, we have to consider regarding quality. Because at the end of the day, how do we know that the quality that we are installing in terms of CCTV is good, bad, mediocre? And second of all, how do we make sure that all the quality in the whole solution is consistent? Because one thing is just to have some cameras recording, but do we know that the quality is consistent everywhere around it? So therefore, there are different types of standards. The standards that we are using in EU and the standard that Dahua is following as well is the EN from IEC. This is a standard that should define quality. It's also known as DORI, which stands for Detection, Observation, Recognition, and Identification. So in this way, when we have a standard for quality, this gives us an understanding of what to expect. And many times in tenders, it is also written in there. This table that you're looking at right now, which describes the pixel per meter in terms of how or what to expect, it helps you avoid these kind of situations so that you know that all the way around you install the cameras, you will have consistent quality and you know exactly where to place them based on the drawing as well. So this table right here is for the visual cameras. There is also a table for the thermal cameras, which is following a little bit of a different criteria or a different type of standard. It is a standard which is known from World War II, a standard that's called Johnson's criteria. It was actually a standard that was developed in order to, again, have consistent quality. It was actually built for being able to detect or observe people. This was used for war, more or less, to be able to define a decent quality, what to expect, etc. So therefore, we also have different standards. When we talk about visual cameras, to be able to face recognize or identify a person from a visual camera is significantly easier. From a thermal camera, it is more or less impossible, unless you have endless loads of money. So the coverage range will never be the same. So therefore, thermal cameras are not built for identifying a person in terms of being able to do face identification. So the criteria are a little bit different in terms of being able to identify means something else in thermal cameras. As you can see from the description down there, it says that you should be able to distinguish if this is a soldier, if this is a civilian, if this is a pickup truck, if it's a truck, if it's a small car, if it's a bus. All these things you should be able to distinguish. When we talk about recognize, it just differentiates from if is it a human or is it a vehicle or is it a building. So therefore, different types of technologies require different types of standards. So we are also, again, following the standard Johnson's criteria that many other vendors are following in terms of defining the quality of thermal cameras as well. Apart from that, who is Project Design Tool for? It is, a tool that is designed to more or less favor the professional installers instead of just somebody that does this on a spare time basis, somebody who's working as a plumber, also figured out how to connect 4 cameras on an NVR, and then you have cameras running there. So this is based for professionals. And this is for installers, particularly, in order to be able to, again, choose exactly the right camera for the right distance, for the right angle. It is also built for advisors, security advisors. It could be different types of consultants which are working with security systems. It is also built for distributors in order to have a very good understanding of what to put on stock. This is also something that we talk about. Also in terms of being able to provide content in terms of how a solution could look like when we design it together based on tender material, etc. Apart from that, even though you could be a professional installer, there are a couple of things that could go wrong. So common mistakes that I would like to mention would be something looking like this. First of all, you might have a installation that you have an understanding of. One thing is to understand how to install a camera properly to avoid a situation like this. Another thing is, just because you know how to install a physical camera on the wall does not necessarily mean that it is suitable to be able to do it like that, or it is sufficient to just install a camera like that. Because in some situations, even though you install a camera properly, you end up with installations looking like these. The problem with an installation like this is definitely something regarding the angles. So you have monitoring zone, and then you have a huge blind zone. So just because you know how to install a camera physically does not know that you understand why it should be located particularly there. So before going ahead with all the designing part, it is very important that we understand that if we do not plan properly, our preparation is to fail, as it says. So first of all, there are a couple of different things that we need to keep in mind. The first thing is the location. Location is key to understanding of how to place the different products, the cameras, etc. So location means, is it one location? Is it more location? Does it have multiple floors? Do we already have a map from the end customer in terms of having a correct scale on that map? Because everything is going to be based on that scale that we are provided with. You can use Google Maps in order to design your what to say solution. I would personally prefer to have a scaled map, is if that's an option from the customer side, because that would always give us a even more accurate measurement. Apart from that, we have something like requirements, challenges. So first of all, after figuring out where the locations are, the floors, etc., we need to understand, is this customer looking for something where we could use the perimeter protection function for? Is it to protect a perimeter? Is it to be able to count people counting? Is it to be able to detect number plates? Is it to be able to count cars? Is it to be able to detect a fire or some object that should get hot? So we have to consider the requirements as well. Apart from that, when we talk about the perimeters, we also need to understand the distances, the areas that we need to be able to measure, the area that we need to monitor. Do we need to analyze based on humans or vehicles? All these things are important that we have an understanding of what is the maximum size of the complete perimeter. And then last but not least, we have the standards of compliance as well. So it's important that we understand, are there already some requirements from the end customer side for the PPM, the pixel per meter, or in some tenders, they will focus on DORI, which asks you to be able to detect or observe or recognize. In this terms, we are referring to the IEC standard that I was talking about. Could also be for a football stadium. They have different requirements. For instance, if you talk about UEFA, they have standards for camera solutions that has to be 160 pixels per meters. Also be factories that have anti-explosion requirements. It could be temperature requirements from the products. So those things are very important to get started with. Once we have done all of that due diligence, the next part is, how do we make sure to get started in terms of getting access to this tool? So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how to get access to it. The first thing is that you go ahead and go to our website. Once you go to our website, then you have at the end of it, let me just see, you have the login. Once you have gone to login, this is where you go ahead and do a sign up. If you don't have an account already, go ahead and feel free to register down here. Once you click register, you should get access to this window. You can just use a personal user account. You can also register as a partner, then you'd have to type in your VAT number. So it's not a requirement necessarily. So personal user, that would be fine. Once you create a user in here, if you're using the Dahua Partner app, you could also use that user on our website or the Dueling Care app as well. Once you go ahead and get the verification code and verify it from your email, type it in there, then you are good to go. Then you're already registered. Then to get access to the tool, then you're going to go to support. Once you go to support, you're going to go to tools. Once you get there, if you scroll a little bit further down, you'll see on your left side, there's something called Project Design Tool. So then we can get started designing our first project. This is how it should be looking. The next part before adding all the maps and projects is we need to make sure that the database is corresponding to the region that we are working in. This gives us an option to filter out those products that are only or filter out those products which are not necessarily for our region. So in this case, I'm based in Denmark. So I chose Denmark, and then we are done, and then we can get started designing. So before getting into the designing part, this is one of the designs you could do in terms of being able to do a very simple small solution. You could install 2 cameras on each of the corners, as you can see. Can anybody see an issue with this way of designing the solution? Or everybody thinks that that's a good way to design it? The gaps, exactly. So what's good and bad about this solution? The good thing is that it's very easy for the installer to install because there's only two locations he needs to wire. He needs to wire 2 cables to each location, but he has a significant amount of blind zone. So he does not get a 360-degree overview. So what if we change the design a little bit like this? So is this better? Everybody agrees that this is a significantly better way of covering, right? So in this, no, yes. So we have a little bit of confusion. So I think it's a better design than before. First of all, we have a 360-degree overview. Second of all, we don't have 2 cameras right next to each other, so it doesn't look like a prison or something. It's an easier way of, or it looks aesthetically, it looks better. You have 1 camera at each corner. It also gives us a what to say. It scares off predators as well, or criminals, or whatever you want to call it. So the thing that I have a little bit of a problem with is the distance. One of the bad things, if I should say something, is that you have a very wide angle. The wide angle is because in most cases, people would use 2.8 millimeter lenses, which is a very wide angle, 111 degrees. The problem with that is all the upper part of the area is useless. So what we are doing is we are wasting pixels. As we talked about earlier, we want to have as many pixels as possible available in the right location. So in this case, if I had halved the angle, if the angle was half of it, I would have the double amount of pixels available. So in this case, if we try to calculate from far away from the house, like from the end of the house, more or less, the distance, as you can see here, we have approximately 63 pixels per meter available. So this is pretty decent, I would say, and it falls under the category of observation. So when we can observe, that's okay, but what if we could get it even better? So if we go over here, now you can see I chose a different model. I chose a 5541. Before it was a 2541, which is a 2 series 5 megapixel camera. Now it's a 5 series 5 megapixel camera. The price range is not that far off. So the good thing is I get the new AccuPic feature if I choose the same, if I choose the right NVR for it. Apart from that, by decreasing the angle, I get a significantly better pixel per meter ratio. It's double, which means significantly better quality. So then it falls under the recognize, what to say, category. So I just changed 1 camera. Another way of designing it is you could use varifocal cameras. They would be a little bit more expensive, but anyway, it would give us an even better coverage, or we can adjust the angles as well. Apart from that, if we exchange all the cameras to 5 series, we get the the AccuPic feature as well, and we get a better coverage because of the lens. The 2541 does not come in a 6 millimeter lens option. So in this case, just by adding 1 more camera, I get a complete coverage of the front surface of the whole area, which is the most important part. But even more important is I get all the way up to 200 pixels, which is quite close to the house. So I get a significantly better quality. To put it in words, it's a little bit easier to understand if we do like this. And you see how big of a difference it makes from observe to recognize and then to identify. So this is some of the key elements to understand of how to design the projects. If you don't understand this part, the tool is not going to help you whatsoever. So let's jump over to the tool part of it. And let me go over here. I'm just going to go over to the tool part. So here I have already logged in. Once I have logged in, give me a sec. Yeah. Once I've logged in, this is where I can add a project. Then now I'm going to add a project. I can add a custom logo, which means my company's logo. I can add a watermark so that if this is shared, everybody can see where this is coming from. So apart from that, what I'm able to do, I'm able to name the whole project. I'm able to choose who should be able to do it. Test project, test, and then it's Fahan. And then the scene, I can choose if it's residential, others, etc. I'm just going to click OK. So once I've created my projects, I can go ahead and click open. Once I open here, I can click add now. So over here, I either can upload a map by myself or I can use Google Maps. So in this case, I'm just going to try to use Google Maps, and then I can type in the location that I'm at right now. Dahua technology. All right, this is my location right here. So now I've somewhat localized the location, DH map. I'm just going to call it DH map. Once I've done this, then it asks me to kind of like specify it a little bit more accurately where the location is. Then now I can zoom in. Once I have zoomed in, I can go ahead and click Start Designing. So once I started designing, then I can go over to my satellite map. I can go and zoom more and more in. So before getting ahead of it, we have some tools on the right side and some on the left side. The right side, I'm just gonna make sure to get you an understanding of it. First of all, we can go to the undo button or backwards or forwards in order to avoid some of the mistakes that we made. Over here, we can see the pixel layer defining the area. You saw from the previous drawings that I had these different bended lines which showed the dory locations. So those layers would be available. The range, I can measure the distance. Over here, once I click, I can go ahead and click all the way around here. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Now, if I choose the whole building here, click, 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 click. And then you have it. This is kind of like and distance. Now you can see this is like 600 meters. Then I'm just going to double click and then that's it. That's how I measure on the map part. So then I have at the end of it, I can see hide and show labels. That would be the camera names, etc. I can show. So let's go to the top side. We have, first of all, the map. We can choose another location instead of it if we decide to choose another one. We have the designing part, what we are doing already. Then we have the devices, the NVR, the cameras. So they are showing exactly the bandwidth, storage amount that's required. And then we can export a report at the end of it. So let's go ahead and try to add a camera to it, a visual camera, and see how that looks. So first of all, I would choose to go ahead and click favorites because I want to add a couple of favorite cameras. So you can see I already added some favorite cameras. The way you add favorite cameras is by clicking on the picture right here with the camera and then plus, and then you type in the model name. So if I type in HFW 5541, then you can see I have different lens options. So I can choose, for instance, this camera right here. And I can go ahead and click star on it, and then I should be able to use that for designing. So then I can just click escape, and then over here, once I have added that one, you can see this was the one, then I could just give it a note if I wanted to. Favorite or webinar. That was the one that we added. So that's it. Now we already added one camera, then we can just go ahead and drag it and drop it. So now we can see that, first of all, once I drag it over here, you can see since I have a fixed lens, I cannot adjust anything. Not that one. So this was just as an example. So once I've chosen this, I can adjust the distance. And then I can see the pixel per meter exactly from where my mouse is pointing at. So over here, I can see I have the different observe, I have the recognize, the identify, so it changes the angles. So over here, if I click over here, all those distances are marked right here. So this gives us a good understanding of the quality. Let's just try to add another camera. Yeah, before going on, over here I have the installation height. I also have the monitoring mode. I can choose how I would like to monitor in terms of if I would like to do a perimeter protection in terms of detecting a person, for instance. Over here, you can see I chose the IVS perimeter protection, then I can choose the person over here. Once I've chosen the person, then you can see the maximum distance from the camera to the maximum distance, how far we can detect a person is 14 meters. If we want to measure the width of the scene, for instance, I can go down here and click, and then I can click here and measure the distance. And I have 14 meters. So in that way, I can go ahead and measure the distance very easily. If we go over to the favorite cameras, oh, let me just go ahead. Yeah, if we go to the favorite cameras, this is one of my favorite cameras over here. Over here, I can adjust it. And as I was mentioning before, sometimes the angle is key. So in this case, when we have a varifocal lens, it gives us the possibility to adjust the angle as well over here. But of course, the pixel per meter will decrease. If I would like to be able to design for a perimeter like this, if I had lots of these cameras I wanted to use, first of all, in my opinion, this angle is too wide. I could use it better to get more distance if I wanted to do a IVS perimeter protection detection. So I could use the distance significantly better because the coverage is not so wide here. So if I go back, I also have another favorite camera, which is, for instance, this one. This is the 4x zoom. This one should give me more distance. Let's try to choose the same monitoring way. Now you can see I got a significantly better distance from that one than the previous one. Oh, let me just see. Yes. And let's choose the person again. So now you can see I got significantly more distance based on those two. If I just click anywhere on the drawing right there, then you can see I will see the whole area. And then over here, I can hide the labels. So in this way, I can see exactly how much it's covering or how much it isn't covering. All the pixel layers over here, these are for the perimeter protection. So I can see I get significantly more areas. So if I wanted to copy this camera, for instance, I can just go back here. And from this list, I can just go ahead and copy. I could choose, I would like to copy 3 of these. Oh, 13, that was a little bit too many. So then I can just move them around. If I wanted to delete some of those, I can just click them and click delete. I can also just click each individual camera and click Control-C and Control-V for the shortcut for copying and pasting. So in this way, I can have a complete coverage of the whole area. So adjusting the angle and making sure to have different colors for different types of cameras. You can see these cameras are the same. So now this one is blue, that one is green. This gives a better overview in terms of distinguishing everything. Let me just try to head over to another project that I just did, kind of like to give you an idea about how a perimeter could look like when we do another map right here. I just created this for fun. You can see now this area I covered with the cameras, the same camera I just chose just before, the 5442 with the 4x zoom camera. So you can see I have covered the whole perimeter with these cameras, and I don't have any blind zones. So in this way, I have a complete perimeter protection area based on the analytics here. So in this way, that's how easily I can cover the areas. If we go over to a thermal camera, if I wanted to add a thermal camera, in this case, I'm going to choose BF5441, which is a dual lens thermal camera, visual lens, dual lens. You can see it comes in different options. I can click them as favorite and add different notes to them so I can tell them apart. So I already cheated a little bit. Oh, sorry. Already cheated a little bit. I added some of them right here. So in this way, you can see instead of using all these cameras, we have a little bit of a wider perimeter here than here, but they are very close to each other. I can have a complete coverage over here with just 2 cameras. So this would also save significantly lots of labor costs. So this is definitely something to consider. Sometimes just because the cameras are more advanced and expensive, we can actually have less cameras and cover better. Also because thermal will give you a better coverage in terms of being able to detect humans and vehicles apart, because we are detecting on different parameters on heat, etc. If we chose a camera like this and we would like to be able to detect based on heat, for instance, or fire, I just chose this camera. This is the similar camera. And down here, you can see I have different options. So heat detection, by default right now, it should say 2 by default. And in the future, this part is going to be improved a little bit in terms of knowing exactly the distances. You can see I have a dual vision here. So I have thermal and visual lenses over here. So in this case, by default, the heat detection is for the fire detection. So by default, the detection area is required to be, or the fire is required to be 2 times 2 meters. So if I wanted to detect a fire that is smaller, etc., I would have to adjust the sizes, which is going to be added in the next update as well. So, but if, for instance, if I would like to have a fire that is 1 by 1, then I would have to click in 4 pixels per meter, and then the area gets significantly decreased. Or if the measurement by default, as I said, was 20, right? If I wanted to have a fire that is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, since the default is 2 by 2 meters, then I could just write 20 pixels are required. Then obviously the area gets significantly shorter. So in this way, the distance is maximum 38 meters from the camera. So the last thing I wanted to show you guys in the measurement tool is the temperature monitoring. And by default, temperature monitoring area is 0.1 times 0.1 meter, which is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Because in most cases, when we want to monitor temperature, it is a very small area that we are detecting based on. This is why we have a pixel requirement that says all the way up to 70 pixels per meter, which gives us a very, very, very small area, right? So if we, for instance, would like to measure based on 1 times 1 meter, then we would have a pixel per meter called 7 pixels per meter, because we obviously just multiply it or divide it. And then you can see all the way over here, this is the distance from the camera if the object that we want to measure temperature is 1 by 1 meter. So this was kind of like some of the things that I wanted to go through in terms of being able to design it. The next part is the device part. The device part is where I can go ahead and see how many cameras, which bandwidth is each camera using. And over here, you can see it's divided into groups over here. And in this case, if I wanted to remove some of the, recording time, so it's not 24/7, I can click over here, and then I can go to the scene part. So over here, I can adjust the parameters in terms of how I would like to record. By default, it's fine. And then I could also choose to have a custom period. So if I don't want it to record 24/7 and I want to calculate, I can go ahead and create a custom period 1. And then I could choose, or I could copy some of these to each individual days as well. And there you have it. Then that's it. And I could go ahead and click custom period 1. So once I've done that, I can just go ahead and go back over here. And then I could go ahead and click over to storage part. This is where I can go ahead and add a NVR. I'm just going to delete this one. And by default, I'm very fond of the 5 series NVRs. And when I look up here, I can see what is required in terms of if I choose these specific cameras from my drawing and I would like to record it, what is required and how many Mbps do they consume all in total and how many channels do I have. So I can add the storage part. And in this case, I can go ahead and choose a 5216, which is one of my favorite NVRs, NVR 5216. And then I can see now I have the AccuPic model right here. I can go ahead and click that one. And now you can see this one is sufficient. I can choose which hard disk sizes, 5, and how many disks do I need in total? I need 2 disks of 5 terabyte, which is enough to be able to record all of this. The NVR is enough. Then more or less that's it. That's how I choose the NBR and make sure that it's corresponding to the requirements. More and more things are going to get added and updated. So there is definitely some room for improvements in terms of specifying it more accurately. After this, I can go to my report part. And the report part, I have different parts. I can see the installation report. I can see then I have all the complete overview. I should be able to see all the pictures. Some of it is being worked on. You can see these are the angle of each individual camera. You can see the depression angle as well. For the lenses, more and more information is going to be added, and the installation height. And then also we can see the system plan. Over here, we can see a complete overview of the whole detail drawing. There should be something uploading here. This is the detail planning, and then I can download it as a PDF. And then let's try to download this guy. Then I have a complete drawing of how I wanted my project to look like, and then more or less I'm done. So in this way, I wouldn't have to use any third-party tool to be able to design my solution. I could just use Dahua's tool directly, and then there we have it. And more parameters are going to be added. And you can see I have a field of view explanation here for each individual camera in there. So there you have it. So that's more or less how I know that my design is good enough. I can see where are all those cameras located at, etc., etc. So that was more or less it. Sorry, we went a little bit above time, but I hope it was useful to you guys. I hope it gave you an understanding of the project design tool, how it works, which benefit it gives you. But more important is make sure to have good preparation, good planning, understand why you're choosing these specific cameras. Consider sometimes cameras with more narrow angles when we are talking about perimeter protection, because there's no purpose of watching roads, bushes, trees, walls, etc. We could sometimes choose better cameras with better coverage instead of having more and more cameras, which will increase the labor cost. So that was more or less it. Do you guys have any questions? Then let's have those questions right now. Someone is typing. To cut the field of view, Nikos, I'm not sure. It would be nice to be able to cut the field of view. I'm not 100% sure I know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, I totally agree. For instance, yes, the question is from Nico is, it would be nice to be able to cut the field of view. For instance, if there is a building directly in your vicinity, so that obviously we can't really see past that building, right? If you look at the drawing, we can't see past that building, which is important to be able to cut the field of view based on that. So that is going to be added. So I already noted that. Yeah, as Edison is reminding, it's a free tool for everyone to use, so there's no requirements to subscribe or anything. All right, if there is not going to be any more questions, this was more or less the end of the webinar. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you some tips and tools of how to improve your security solutions out there. And I hope to see you at the next webinar in the future as well. So thank you very much for joining, and see you next time. Thank you, George, for joining, and thank you, Dennis, as well. And Kurikos, hope I pronounced that right.